I'll call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city is certified by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Beck.
Here.
Coulterman.
Present.
Streisand.
Here.
Camper.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
We have 2 items for this evening's consent agenda.
Move approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
All right, our first administrative item this evening is consideration of an ordinance to amend City Code 382-11.1 golf carts and City Code 382-10.2 operation of all terrain and utility type vehicles. Doing anything, Greg?
I would just note, this is the second reading on this one. We can, Kelly, you're gonna do some direction for us tonight on some votes?
Sure.
We can amend on second reading, correct?
Absolutely.
But we already previously had the public hearing on this item, and so we allowed the public to come speak and do that, obviously, if there's more to follow up on that. I haven't personally heard anything one way or the other on this. I know we heard from, this originally was a citizen request, and the citizen who requested it did speak at the public hearing, and provide her thoughts on it. So, other than that, we can suspend the rules tonight with 6 votes.
Right.
And then to approve it, because we only have 6, we need 5 votes to approve, correct? Okay. There you go.
So, I guess first of all, is there any further discussion on this item? And if not, then I'll go on. I will do the motion to suspend the rules, but I want to give an opportunity for any further comment from the council. See no further comment? Okay. So we've already read the, do I want to read it a second time or just go straight to the statutory? Okay. So, so I just need a motion to dispense with the statutory rule.
So moved.
Second.
Need a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Okay, so this is ordinance number 2022-16. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2022-16 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright. Item number 2, consideration of an ordinance to amend the City of Seward Unified Land Development Ordinance, ULDO, Chapter 410, Zoning and Subdivision, Article 3.7, Commercial Use Type, Article 31.5, Commercial Uses, and Chapter 410, Attachment 1. Tim, did you want to add anything to this?
Nothing to add, again, second reading, it was unanimous the first time, so unless there's questions.
Are there any questions or questions or comments from the council? If not, then I would need a motion to dispense with the statutory rule.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Again, this is ordinance number 2022-17. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2022-17 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camworth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, item number 3, consideration of a special use permit for 511 Bradford Street to allow an outdoor dog exercise area in the central business district. Tim?
Again, nothing to add. Remember, this is going to be attached to Dinsladen personally, the owner, as opposed to the property. And that way, if he ever vacates or decides to move on, then the next owner would have to come before you and go through the same process.
You have any concerns at all at
No.
this point? Okay.
No, and we haven't heard any from anybody either, so.
Alright, any questions or comments from the council?
Move to approve the permit?
Second.
Can we have a motion and a second? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camworth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Okay, item number 4, consideration of an ordinance to amend the City of Seward Unified Land Development Ordinance, ULDO, Chapter 410, zoning and subdivision, Article 35, sign regulations, and attachment 2. Tim, anything to add?
Nothing to add. If you recall, the one recommendation by planning commission was to wait till after the election to enact this ordinance.
Okay.
I will, I'll jump on that one then. I think for the purpose of the ordinance, and we can adjust it or provide the final version, we would request that the actual ordinance itself, due to it being after the election, I think the easiest for us, for administration, would be to have it go into effect at the calendar year. And so just to give it a January 1st, because we're gonna have signs out after election day and everything else, so we don't wanna put like the next day. So let's give ourselves some cleanup time, some educational time, and just set the effective date as January 1st. So we would need an amendment to this to do that, correct, Kelly?
Right.
So
I'll
that-
make that amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend it
I'll
to,
second.
hang on a second.
To January
An
1st.
effective date of January 1st, 2023. You seconded that.
Mhm.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camworth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Is there any other discussion on this? Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I wanted to ask Greg to clarify what we talked about.
I had a discussion today, facilitated by an email that came from Councilman Camprith. Under temporary signs, and I'm trying to look in my packet here where exactly this is again. I found, it's under section E of the ordinance, when you get into it, after all of the, so under section 1, you see all those definitions on the first like 4 pages, and then, we get into the crux of it, prohibited signs, and then exempt signs, and then we have temporary signs, which has its own section. One of, is sub F, detached temporary signs may be placed on public property with permission of the city. The discussion of that was we don't really have a mechanism for approval of those signs, and I also noted that it's just generally says public property, so that would actually mean the county. Fairgrounds is technically public property. It's kind of a broad thing. And so what I recommended was detached signs may be placed on city public property for city business. And what that means is we want to be able to put signs out if we're having football,
Library.
yeah, the library, or if we're having football registrations, or even if you allow, a lot of times we allow events on our property. We have a lot of the events down at Plum Creek Park. Well, if they want to put a sign out and you guys have given them approval to have the event, and they want to put a sign up that says registration table here or something, we don't want to say no. And so that's more of that rather than, hey, can I get permission to put up 40th birthday signs all over City Hall for some weirdo that works there, or if you want to get more into the like the recognizing of something on city property, and that can be anything that maybe is more controversial. We don't have a mechanism for that right now. We don't want to wade into that with this. This was thinking more of, we do stuff ourselves, So signs for city business on city property are fine,
So do you want an amendment to that effect?
yes.
Okay, I will make an amendment in section E, temporary signs, sub F, to change the language from detached temporary signs may be placed on city public property, is that what you
Yep.
wanted to say? With the permission of the city.
For city, well, it should just say for city business.
For city business.
And then we'll kind of understand, I know, hopefully that institution all goes on. But the purpose of that is for what we're doing rather than opening it up and making it a place for speech for the public.
Okay,
Does that work, Kelly?
Kelly, did you get that language, or do you need me to say it again?
And the administration is the one that would have to make that call.
Or
Yeah.
Derek, did you
So
get that?
by the
language?
city, just so we're clear, talking about the administration, we're not gonna come to council every time.
Yes, that's
So-
what I understood.
Yeah.
I'm just reading the way it's written. If you want me to change the word to administration, I can.
No,
Okay.
it just says. the
I just wanna
city
make sure that's
manager.
the understanding, so there's no confusion, and
Mhm.
we're gonna come back to the council every time.
Detached
That
temporary
one's,
signs may be placed on city public property with the permission of the city for city business? Is that how you wanted it worded? Is
Is that okay, Kelly, or do you?
I think that's fine, and you can always trial and error and see how it works.
Yeah.
And if it becomes an
That's
issue
fine.
down the road, then re-amend it again.
Those are allowed under the other zoning ordinances. This is only, this section is only the temporary signs. Again, traditionally thinking of our campaign style, real estate style, roofers, those kind of, the signage.
Okay,
So,
so that's the amendment.
basically, if we're doing business with the city, we're on city property. So even a roofing one, if a roofing company is doing that, it's my own speculation. I actually think the roofing companies put those signs out so other roofers won't come bother you anymore.
That is why they put.
It's really like signaling more than it is anything else versus advertising. But, so as long as we're doing our things that have been approved by the city, then we'll put them up or allow that, but otherwise, there's no mechanism to come like request, hey, can I put up a sign on City Hall? No, we're not doing that.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Is there any other discussion or amendments that you'd like to consider before you go on to the waiving the statutory rule? Hearing none, then I would need a motion to dispense with the statutory rule.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Actually, let me back up a second here. Alright, yes, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, this is ordinance number 2022-18. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2022-18 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, item 5, consideration of an ordinance to amend City Code 350 taxation, Article 2.1, occupation tax, Item 1, sewer utilities. Greg.
Yes, pursuant to the budget that was approved, we eliminated the occupation tax on the wastewater system, sewer. That is identified to go back into the wastewater fund rather than being paid as a franchise fee or occupation tax into the general fund. We still do that with water and electric. So this will go back to the wastewater fund, and then we'll utilize those funds to set them away for the wastewater treatment plant. I'm trying to put as much funding as possible aside to prepare for that, as you'll see with our rate increase tonight as well, as we previously discussed. Answer any questions you have, otherwise, there's that.
Any questions or comments from the council?
I'll introduce the ordinance.
This is the first one.
No, I think this is
Is
the
the
second
second
one.
one?
Yeah, this is the second one.
Oh, it is.
Yep, so we
Okay.
just
So I
suspend the
just
rule.
need, yeah,
Never
so
mind.
make a motion to dispense statutory rule, Sid? Make a
Yes,
vote,
I'll motion to
suspend, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Alright, we have a, is there any further discussion? Please register your votes, please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, this is ordinance number 2022-19. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2022-19 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, next, item 6, consideration of ordinance amending the comprehensive pay plan, providing for a 5% cost of living adjustment for all pay lines and incorporation of comparability pay adjustment for various employees. Greg?
Yep, pursuant to the adjustments we made, reviewed clear back in, I believe, July by Personnel Finance and Audit. Ultimately, we had some different discussion back and forth during the budget process, and then adopted, the methodology that you see before you here tonight. Myself, Finance Director Nick Wolf, and Derek all triple dog checked these things, cause we have a lot of Excel files and stuff that work on this stuff, so we wanted to make sure that we had all our math and we all agreed on it and worked independently. We also have a few changes that are listed here. The library assistant one, after reviewing of current positions, we used to have 2 library assistant ones. This one breaks down and now we have just one, because they had the same pay line, just different titles, so we've combined all that together, so that's been adjusted. Library clerk, HR director, Martin noticed that there was no library clerk 2 classification, thus he eliminated the 1. That's an adjustment. Electric service technician, in discussions with Larry Ruther, he noted that this position has not been filled for many years and did not have a need for this position currently. So we've eliminated that. We don't have any future foresight for it. Street foreman, previously, the city utilized the Public Works Department, which included a street division. As such, this formally updates the title to reflect the elimination of the Public Works Department. And then the wastewater, water seasonal labor has been adjusted into the current seasonal summer labor position, which was already included in the job description. Thus, we didn't need a separate one. They had the same pay line. So, and then there's a slight adjustment at the end to note how we handle longevity pay. With recent changes in the handbooks that was adopted by the council in June, the city's revised how it treats longevity pay. As such, the ordinance now reflects the current adopted policy that will go in, and we'll do that, not every single pay period now. We'll do longevity. It helps out with the pay process, so you don't have to do a lot of manual checking, and cleans that up on the reg. So, I can answer any questions you have, otherwise.
Yes, Alyssa.
I have a question. Under the water safety instructor aide, what is that position?
I believe that is our lowest level of kids that have, they are of age where they're learning the minimum to be water safety instructors later, or lifeguards, and so they come and they do basically anything that doesn't involve getting in the pool. They'll get materials out and put them on the edge of the pool for classes, things like that. It's just that first level where they don't have any certifications, they can't get in the pool with anybody, but we're trying to get them exposed to the pool. Can't tell you everything they do without pulling the job description, but I know that's what that's used for. It's trying to expose kids to, hey, here, come down for our swim classes, and then we'll start getting you used to, here's how we do things at the pool and the feel for it, and then hopefully someday those kids will work up through the different ranks and become lifeguards for us.
My questioning of it is minimum wage is 9, correct?
The city doesn't have to pay the state minimum wage.
Okay. Perfect. Just
So,
wanted to make sure.
yep, they tend to be really young kids,
That's fine.
so.
Any other questions or comments from the council? I would ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
Alright, an ordinance to provide for annual classification of officers and employees of the city of Seward, Nebraska, to provide for longevity pay and payment of part-time employees, to provide for a date such classification and pay ranges of compensation shall become effective, to provide for publication in pamphlet form, to provide for a time when this ordinance shall take effect. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2022-20, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So moved. Second.
The motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
This is ordinance number 2022-20. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? The question is, shall ordinance number 2022-20 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
Alright, item number 7, consideration of an ordinance amending the municipal code, initiating a sewer rate adjustment, increasing total system revenues by 15%, effective with October 2022 billing.
Yes, we did a 15% adjustment on this pursuant to the budget that was adopted. We always take up these utility rate adjustments if we have any at the first meeting in October, so they're effective for the October billing that comes out at the end of the month. The adjustments you have here, we adjusted both the residential and general service rates, along with the large general, not the large ones, we'll explain that. Currently, we only have people on the residential and general service. No one is on the large general service rate. That is not charged. So, no one has met those thresholds for BOD, SS, TKN, or fats, oils, and grease, otherwise known as FOG. One thing we did do, so you kind of understand the methodology, we did this slightly differently than we have in the past. Usually we send this off to NMPP, and they make adjustments, and they kind of do an extrapolation to guarantee that you get the revenue that you're requesting. So if you're requesting 15% revenue increases, what they do is they tend to tailor back the rate and increase the user fee. And that guarantees that the revenue shows up. We felt that it was more appropriate with how large it is, that we were gonna adjust all fees exactly, because what you would have there is the rate, the user fee would adjust like 25%, and the rate fee would slightly go down. That guarantees revenue, pulls money out of everybody's pocket. We felt it was more appropriate to adjust all the numbers exactly 15%, and if somebody was like, hey, my rates are going up, I want to adjust for that, they can pull down and that rate is not eaten up entirely. So it's a slight adjustment from what we did before. If it was something more intricate like electric, which has so many more levels and different ways that we charge for it, we might do it differently, but this is very simplistic, as you can see here with these two rates. And so we adjusted it directly on the nose, 15%. So,
Any questions or comments? Yes, Sid?
So Greg, this is calculated on that January, February, March usage, right?
yes, that is correct.
So if I understand it correctly, come at the end of this month, whenever it goes out, that 3-month amount that you're being billed on currently is what will go up
Yes.
by 15%.
Yep.
And then
And then it'll be remeasured back this winter and then reset and be based on these rates. And the reason for the increase, as we said in the budget that was approved, is this additional revenue will be set aside for the wastewater treatment plant.
and in the budget that was approved, was this 15% like projected as part of the budget?
Yes.
It was.
Can you give an example like what that would typically equate to?
I can give you a rough one.
Yeah, just so people, because 15% sounds like a large increase, but we're really, I mean,
Most of the time you're seeing on a residential between 40 and 60 is your total bill. And so, let me get my calculator out here. So on a $45 bill, which would be under the old one at $27.31 user fee now, the older, I could go pull up the old number and reverse that. But a $45 bill going up by 15% is gonna go to, it's a $6 increase on a $45 bill
Per month.
per month.
and this is, again, for the future capital expense, so you either pay now or you pay later, there's really no way to avoid it, unfortunately.
Greg, do you have any guesstimates, since we took off the franchise fee or user fee, whatever, that the city usually paid to general fund? Do you know about how much that's projected to add?
I'd have to pull up my budget. I have that, it is in the budget, we listed it out. Yeah, you know where that is in Nick's files? I can find it if you hand it to me real fast. Sorry. We did a really good job. I commend my whole staff. We reorganized all the online filing systems and the digital files. Now that we basically have turned over almost the entire department head staffing, and they did a really, really good job of cleaning all this up. You don't see those files where there's like 6 file folders and then 100 just random files that somebody threw in the opening file or the user or on the server. So we cleaned all that up, but I think we sat in this room for like 5 hours as all department heads and did that. It was painful, but not too painful. So in the budget, I'll actually pull up. I pulled up this year's budget, but I'm gonna pull up last year's budget because it will list that franchise fee. Because you won't see it this year. Actually, you will. Administration. We're budgeting this year, we're estimating it'll end at 92,000 for the fiscal year ending 2 or 3 days ago, and then it will go to 0. So, not a huge amount of money in context of a $24 million project, but we continue to move that over there and try to do everything we can and do our best efforts to use wastewater money for wastewater needs, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? I'll let it ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce the ordinance.
An ordinance to amend sections 325-8.1 through 325-8.3 of the municipal code to initiate a sewer rate adjustment that will increase total system revenues generated by rates charged to customers for service from the sewer system of the city by 15%, effective with the October 2022 billing, to provide for billing thereof, to repeal the original sections 325-8.1 through 325-8.3, to provide for a time when this ordinance shall take effect. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2022-21, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rule.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
Again, this is ordinance number 2022-21. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2022-21 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand. Voting against, Hendricks, 5-1.
This is the last ordinance for this evening, so I'll need one final motion to make the ordinance as a part of the permanent record.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, item number 8, consideration of a sale agreement with Stryker Sales LLC for 2 Stryker cot lift systems and authorization for mayor to sign all documents. Greg.
I'll turn it over to Councilmember Singleton to explain what a Stryker cot system is.
This is something we probably should have done a long time ago. And what this does is it takes the risk away from the city for work comp costs of somebody having a back strain. When you're lifting somebody with a cot, you have to physically lift that cot into the back of the rescue squad. This unit will hydraulically lift the cot and you just slide it right in. So basically, one person can actually move the cot onto the system or the support, lift it up, and it'll slide right in. where before you'd have to have 3 people lift the cot. And for anybody that's a larger, you know, we're taking the risk away for work comp costs. So and sometimes if we're short on staffing, we'll utilize that. So, like I said, something we should have did a long time ago. So it'll benefit the risk. It'll take the risk away and help staffing when we're on calls.
So that's a description of what it is.
Correct.
The reason it's coming before the council,
Oh,
because
sorry.
this is a budgeted item, that normally we would say, hey, if you guys authorize us to budget stuff, we just go buy it, is when Assistant Chief Dan Brown approached Stryker, they noted, one, that they will soon have an increase of it at 9%. And we are technically budgeted, not budgeted, but we are planning for in our CIP to purchase another one of these for the other rescue squad next year. And so we said, well, we didn't budget for 2, so we can't buy 2. And they said, well, what if you sign an agreement to buy the second one and just pay for it in your budget year next year? Basically, we'll finance you. Okay. And so they came back and asked if they could do that. And I said, well, technically, yes. What you'll need to do is get the council's specific approval. Essentially, this is a financing, so it's slightly different than obligating future council, but that's essentially what it is anytime we finance something. I said, and I reminded all the department heads, this is gonna be a perpetual problem for us moving forward in purchasing things that have very long lead times. And the example I've been using in working with Larry and Jared at the electric department is an All-Tech, which is our standard lift truck that we use. It is 3 years out. I think I have a lift truck selected for 2 years, not this year, but the next year. And so I told the staff that we're seeing this issue with some of our capital things that are planned. It may get to the point where you're looking at that going, no, I need that truck on that year. There is not an extension, for safety purposes or whatever it may be. If you're definitive that you'll need it in that year, you will need to take this to the council and they will need to technically bind a future council to make that purchase once it becomes available. Because I don't wanna wait 3 years and then still find out the lead times are 3 years and now we're 6 years out on a lift truck for electric that they use every single day. And so we're seeing that on some of the not a ton of them, but I wanted it to be a forward thing where they come and we discuss it here at council rather than just do it under the, underhandedly or just say, oh, yeah, we also said we were buying another one of these. If they have any of these sort of items, we need to bring it to the council, bring it to your attention, let you know what's going on. And so that's what happened with this one. Again, the other thing is they're gonna bring them and install them both. They're gonna get both rescue squads upgraded at the same time.
Good to our old cots. We're not buying new cots, so they're fitting them to our existing cots.
Yep.
Right.
And so, one, them operating themselves to come out and install those, we don't have to pay 2 installs, we just do it once, so. I felt like this was a good enough thing to bring for your consideration and see where you wanna go with it, but I wanted to give you a forewarning that we're seeing this a lot, especially in some of the larger items, big ticket items.
We just got an announcement on our fire trucks. They are now 500 days build time. And possibly will go further.
And a pumper truck that you guys approved way over a year ago has not even got a chassis yet.
Well, it's a good thing we got it in motion.
Any,
But we're not expending the funds, they're just sitting there.
any
And so-
technical questions for John Singleton?
Just a dumb question, is a cot the same as what we think of as a stretcher?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought.
But it sounds way cooler and fancier.
A cot, I thought of just like a fold out
We
thing,
used to have them in the old motorhome.
yeah,
Like the ones you had in MASH.
yeah.
If I don't remember the old motorhome.
I do, I'm a big fiberglass.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
I don't remember it.
Yes.
Mistakes me.
Paragraph 7 has a governing law of Michigan, so unless you want to send me to Michigan to litigate, perhaps we suggest that change to Nebraska law.
Okay.
Okay.
You find that section?
I did. Section 7.
Okay. So I'm gonna make a motion to amend
I will make a motion to amend
section 7
section 7, changing
to Nebraska law.
Michigan law to Nebraska law.
We good? All right. Is Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Good catch, Kelly.
Any other questions or comments? Or we entertain a motion on the item as amended?
I make a motion to approve the item as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camper, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Alright, item number 9, approve specifications, plans, and a cost estimate for the East Seward Street construction project and authorize the city to advertise for bids. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening. So in your packet was a set of plans and specifications and a two-page cost estimate. This is for the East Seward Street improvements. This is from the city limits extending out to Highway 34. We intend on renaming the north-south portion Prairie Flower Road, and as that continues farther north in the future, as we currently foresee, that'll be, East Seward will continue directly east. The schedule for this project, we plan to advertise October 12th, 19th, and 26th. And the Seward Independent, bid opening November 1st. It gives contractors 4 weeks to prepare bids. We plan to have a recommendation to the city council November 15th. Notice to proceed by that Friday to the contractor on November 18th. Substantial completion is written in currently in the specifications as July 1st, 2023. We do believe that the piping, storm sewer piping, storm sewer structures, and the paving can be completed in calendar year 2022, next year. But there is a number of other issues, street lighting, there's seeding, restoration of existing ground that we believe we can't fit in next year, so we need the following spring season to do so. So that's stretching it out, and we were having a hard time contractors completing projects. Final completion would be August 1st, 2023 on that current schedule. So typically what we would do is we have a set of signed and stamped and signed plans and specifications issued for construction. I did identify in sheets 9 and 10, that's the storm sewer structures, some errant details that I do believe should be fixed before we advertise or release to contractors. There are always additional mechanisms to correct errors that we find in projects. But so we would typically, to maintain the schedule and not let it slide another 2 weeks, I'm asking if the set get approved. The details, the difference of the set we'll advertise will probably be invisible, not identifiable by anybody that's not a civil engineer or a contractor. So with that, I mean, obviously you can always decide not to approve and bring it back at the next city council meeting, but I am asking for the schedule that we approve this set, so. I just wanted to make you aware of that minor issue.
This might be any questions or comments from the council. Yes, John?
Is this evergreen as well with this?
It is evergreen as well, correct.
And what are you estimating start time and done time on evergreen?
Evergreen is a separate phase. We have not told the contractor, there's 3 phases. There's the east-west portion, then there's the north-south portion, and then there's evergreen. And the contractor cannot close more than one of those 3 at a given time. And so we're giving the contractor flexibility in that long time period to decide when it's best to close evergreen. So we'll have that conversation when we award a contractor and issue a notice to proceed, then we start having discussions, and we'll have obviously a kickoff meeting with the contractor and get a better idea on schedule.
The involvement with the county, are they helping out with Seward Street?
Yes, there's an interlocal agreement already with them to pay for a portion of this.
Yes,
So what are the cost estimates, Mike, since this has been on the plan and 1 and 6 year plan, what are the cost estimates done in the past few years for this project?
what have they been, or what is it currently, or?
Yeah, just how much has it gone up?
Well, it's
compared to when we
currently,
first went.
the last estimate was completed in April, essentially had all the same quantity, and we don't have better information. That number came in a little over 1.9 million. You know, as we added the storm sewer system, and on Evergreen, some of this, is a sanitary sewer extension, past Evergreen. We felt it was best to do it now rather than dig up new pavement in a couple of years. That'll serve development out to the east. And so these additions to the project really boosted that number. So we probably were, 1.4, 1.6 million, and rising to 1.9 as we've completed design of the project, so. It is, I think the cost estimate is reasonable. Obviously, in this bidding climate, lack of workers, lack of materials, I think that's stabilized, but we have a hard time predicting. And so I think this is a better time to bid the project than it was to bid it a year ago, as an example. There's still a lot of infrastructure money awash. And so there's been a lot of projects bid, and a lot of contractors are just full of work. And so obviously, if you have too much work to do, and you still wanna submit a bid, you're gonna submit a high bid that you're bringing somebody from some other region. So part of the reason we extend that completion date, way out to July 1st of 2023, is to hope to ease that pressure, give the contractor confidence that he'll have time to complete that project on a normal schedule without a lot of extra overtime, not worrying as much about the weather and delays that may cause. So, but honestly, we could still see, I think the number will be good, but I think we can still see unexpected higher set of bids, and then the engineer's estimate becomes the low bid as per se. So it's very hard for engineering estimates to be accurate in an inflationary environment that we are in.
John?
The other question, neighbor, concern, there is a resident that lives between the old John Deere and Evergreen,
Correct,
and they use semis.
okay?
So what, and they're worried about, because that culvert that goes under there is tied with their driveway. And have you talked to them at all, and
I haven't had a direct conversation, I know who you're referring to, and we certainly will. He is getting a new concrete apron, and we actually have to replace the single 24-inch pipe with two 30-inch parallel pipes. And so he's actually, a portion of his gravel is gonna be converted to concrete, so we'll replace it with board-placed concrete over that. All of that is suitable for heavy truck traffic as we are putting in, so he will not have any, it'll be just like a street.
yeah, it's just the shutdown time, you know, of not being
Well,
able.
and we'll certainly have to work that out. Obviously, we need some information from the contractor. Now, his driveway, I would anticipate it would be, at least, a couple weeks, cause you need a full week for that concrete to cure. We've been very successful working with contractors elsewhere in minimizing that downtime. Could be a little bit higher depending on what they encounter. It is two pipes going under his driveway. We'll do our best to minimize that impact to him, keep the communication open with him.
Yeah, I mean, you might wanna work out something there with them, and work out maybe something with the owners, like the Cross and Sons, maybe that, the city go there and get permission, maybe they can park their trucks there.
Okay, all right, that's a very good idea.
But I'd really work with them, you know, give them some heads up,
I
and
think he'll be pleased with the results in the end. Obviously,
Yeah.
we,
it's just
a
during
little painful during construction, so.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yes. Sid?
Mike or Greg, what's with this interlocal agreement with the county, what, at that 1.9 or whatever it ends up being, what's the percentages of like city versus county?
I think ultimately, what was our number finished off at, 350?
250,
250.
and it was a flat fee, we
Yep.
didn't.
There was a
pay any
percentage
kind of
base.
percentage.
Okay, just 250.
Just a
Yep.
flat
Okay.
250.
Okay,
And
thanks.
so I do believe the water and sanitary portions are roughly 300,000 as well. So then the city's portion of the paving portion is, whatever the difference is, down, 1.4 is that, so we take 1.9 minus,
$500,000.
Yeah, 0.5.
Cause some of these funds, again, with those being utility extensions, will come out of these utility funds.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions or comments from the council?
I would make a motion that we approve the specification plans and cost estimate and authorize to go out for bids.
Second.
The motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
Alright, thanks, Mike. Item 10, consideration of a resolution approving a street closure crossing Highway 15 for Seward County Chamber and Development Partnership Christmas Festival Committee Annual Lighted Christmas Parade permit on November 26, 2022. Welcome.
Hi there. I am Megan Kaler. I am a member of the Seward County Chamber Development Partnership's Christmas Festival Planning Committee and also a parade co-chair. Thank you very much for your support of this event in the past. Before you tonight is the consideration for the closing of Highway 15 for that parade on November 26th. There should be no other changes to this as in the past.
And this is pretty common for this parade as well as the 4th of July. When you cross the highway, the city requires the council to have a formal resolution requesting that closure. So that's why this comes to you here. Any questions or comments from the council? Otherwise, ask someone to introduce the resolution.
I'll introduce resolution.
Right, the resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022. Is this, oh, sorry, 2022-28. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendrick, 6-0.
Alright, item number 11, approval of audit engagement letter with ANGL to conduct the city's annual audit. Greg.
Pursuant to the direction of the council and the Personnel and Finance and Audit Committee, we have an engagement letter here for our annual audit. Answer any questions you have, they'll be on site here in November.
So in the last wellness meeting I attended, gosh, was it a week ago Monday? One of the questions was, could we add that, the wellness center budget and transactions under this AMGL to be part of the city?
Under the current one, under the relationship, because we haven't established the formal legal relationship like the library foundation. Once we get the formal legal relationship established between the Wellness Center Committee, which right now is Seward Changing the Game, once we establish that, I believe we can, but right now we don't have that legally established, and it's not set up as like a beneficiary foundation for specifically the city. And so I talked to Shane about that, and I think it will have to be separate until that whole legal apparatus is put together. And then they qualify just like the airport authority would, the senior center fund until it left, and then the library foundation, because I think currently we audit the library foundation as well as part of ours.
Well, and we would certainly like that if you would audit that committee, because we went out for some bids from different CPA firms, and we just had one sheet with maybe 9 transactions on it, and some of the bids for our annual audit were, my goodness sakes, so, you know, we certainly encourage that.
I think, and again, some of the discussion has been will have to be long-term agreed upon by the council and that formal agreement put together. But the plan is, I believe, is that Seward Changing the Game will kind of adjust in that Wellness Center Committee. After the capital project is complete, they'll adjust to a foundational element where they're raising funds for the long-term capital outlay of the Wellness Center. And then that relationship will be made and they can come under our, so, and then we might be able to do it ahead of time, but Kelly and we've been working with Tim Mall, trying to finalize discussions on getting those legal agreements put together between us. So once they do that, we can definitely do that, so. And if you want something from this group specifically, you could reach out to Nick and he can speak with our firm that we're gonna utilize and see what we can get for a rate.
Well, we'd certainly like that because of the amounts of money that we're talking about coming into that committee before it gets transferred over to the city. The discussion got to be of directors and officers' liability insurance and stuff too.
Yep.
You know, so, even though there's gonna be very few transactions and stuff, it's a lot of money for just an ad hoc committee that's just kinda getting thrown together right now, so we're all looking for help.
Okay.
And appreciate any help you can give us, so.
I'll have Nick reach out.
And Kelly, is Tim Mole is who's representing? Is he- is he-
Tim is the attorney for sewer
For
changing
sewer
the game.
change, yeah, so that's what they told us, that Kelly's in discussion with Tim.
So we're trying to work out that agreement so that there is a legal agreement for all the transaction of all that money, cause it has to flow, all of it will ultimately flow through the city.
Yeah, yep.
So, but they're receiving, and you'll hear my wellness center update later.
Yeah, we just, some big checks, we didn't wanna mishandle them, so.
Yep.
Yeah, anyone else have any questions or comments on item 11? If not, I'm gonna entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Alright,
Motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Beck, Camperth, Coulterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 6-0.
Item 12, update on the Seward Wellness Center. Greg.
Yeah, we were, sewer changing the game, I believe, was awarded a $200,000 foundational grant from the Ackley Foundation the other day. And so they continue to work through that process to apply for private foundational grants. Again, when we get further down the line with design and we start getting estimates or final design build estimates, we'll be able to apply again for some more of those that maybe we felt we weren't at the right appropriate spot. But Ackley reached out to us and asked us to at least try to put in a submission. We did so, and we're successful in receiving a $200,000 grant to help out. So excited about that. We're finishing up the RFQ scoring process. I believe Councilmember Coulterman, Miller, and Streisand, you'll be getting an email with a Dropbox to look through all the RFQs and score those, and then we'll have a meeting to get together and set interviews. So look for that. And that's kind of the end on that one. We're reviewing and
I have one little addition too. In our meeting, Dave Cohn from Concordia University is part of that committee. And Dave had a good suggestion about doing RFQs with contractors also, just to speed up the process, so.
And I spoke with Max and Dave the other day when I was out at Concordia, and so I was going to follow up with Lash and Kelly, because that process I've not seen specifically. I know the university has utilized
Yeah,
it.
that's what he referred to.
And so I'm just trying to make sure the rules and restrictions, it's like why we can't do design build, because the state statutes say unless you do all of this hoop jumping to change your statutes and your codes, you can't do these kind of other creative methods for kind of getting building projects done. They're still looking at you wanting to do the traditional, hey, go bid your project out, and then unless you have an unqualified bidder, you take the low bid for capital projects like that. And so we're gonna try and work through that, and also make sure that it also matches any restrictions that we have for procurement policies and things like that that are part of the grant. Because the grant, being a federal grant for the shovel ready, will say you have to follow federal and state law procurement policies and our own when we bid it. And so I was gonna meet with Dave and then try to reconnect back with the lead